Today, we are going to talk about the past, or what some people might call false memory OCD, false event OCD. I had a question from somebody in my Peace from Within community, and they said, I would love a video on false memory / real event OCD. Feeling a lot better since going through the videos in the community, but would love to see something about the 3 principles approach to this subtype in a video. It's my main struggle. I first want to just talk about, or ask you to consider, is thinking of it as a subtype with this label helpful? And I'm not offering, I don't want you to think about it in a certain way, because sometimes having a label can be so helpful. When I first heard about pure OCD, and pure OCD is different than, well, it's a subtype in that OCD, there's sometimes outwardly observable behaviors and compulsions like counting or hand washing or closing something a certain number of times. But with pure OCD, it's more just inside your head, like ruminating or looping thoughts or researching or reassurance seeking. And when I heard about pure OCD, and it was actually after I came into the 3 principles and I had healed from disordered anxiety, panic, and OCD, I didn't know that I had OCD, but my experience felt very different, partially in part with depersonalization and derealization, but also so much of that kind of pure OCD. And so when I read about pure O, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. That's why it felt different than just generalized anxiety disorder. And so sometimes reading about something having a label can be like, oh my gosh, wow, having a name to it can be so helpful. And sometimes it can not be helpful as well. Like it can be helpful in the beginning and then it's time to let it go, which I often find when I work with clients. Sometimes they're really ready to let go of the OCD label, let go of thinking about subtypes, because sometimes a lot of the discussion about OCD makes it more serious and we can think it's harder to get over. So just offering up for you to consider, what if you were just thinking as that sometimes I get lost in the past and I get confused. I think my memory gets cloudy, which happens with memory. And the more I think about it, the more confused I get. And you know what, when I let it go and I just return to clarity, then I know. And so it's really helpful for me to remember that when I get muddled and confused, I'm not going to see more clearly. I'm not going to remember the past by thinking more. I can just allow myself to return to a good feeling, return to balance, return to clarity. But let's get into it a little bit more. So this person said for them, what this past event OCD looks like is feeling like there's something wrong in the past actual events. They struggle with thinking, what if I forgot some major detail that changes the whole story? They said spending a lot of time occasionally ruminating about events from 6 to 7 years ago, not knowing what is true or not. And of course, I don't remember what I did December 16th, 2017. I deep down know there is nothing to figure out. I haven't struggled with these thoughts until this past year, but the anxiety coming with the what if thoughts related to the past events that I can't get a certain answers to is unsettling. And I asked them to talk to me more about what they mean when they said, deep down, I know it's nothing to worry about. And they said, I know deep down it's nothing to worry about because when I'm in a good place, I'm not at all worried about these past events. I can even remember them, discuss them with my husband without being triggered. I can even think to myself, I remember when I was so anxious about that, so typical OCD. And honestly, that is enough to stop there of just knowing when I'm in a good place, that's when I'm thinking clearly. And so you can know when I'm not in a good place and when I'm not in a clear state of mind. And when I say good place versus not good place, it's not saying, hey, you got to spend all your time in a good place. You got to spend all your time in a clear state of mind. No, it's totally okay. Human beings, we go from clarity and not clarity, and the quality of our thinking changes all the time. But when we can let our feelings be our guide and know that it's okay if we're just muddled and confused and feeling anxious, don't trust your thinking, don't try to do anything. And you know that when you return to a good feeling, which we always do, our mind is a self-correcting system. That's when you're going to have clarity. That's when you're going to find everything you're looking for. So this person, or if you're watching it, you already know it. It's honestly that simple. And I also think they had shared a little bit more about maybe why this got sticky. They shared there was a time when their husband was sick and they're also a mom and they were in school, kind of maybe it sounds like feeling a little bit burnt out. They said, I hit a wall. They said, I shut down. And sometimes More often than not, every single client I've seen, something happened in their life. I think the issue is that I've always fixed my anxiety talking about it with my husband or family. And then they said the way reassuring myself instead of handling it. This time that didn't work. I was still anxious after talking about it. And I want to say there's nothing wrong that in the past, it helps you have clarity to talk about it. If there was something you were anxious about, there's nothing wrong. You weren't not handling your anxiety. We know anxiety is just a bunch of distorted thinking and feeling. When you talked about it in the past, maybe it helped you go to clarity. It helped your mind quiet and it helped you see the truth. But in this instance, it sounds like you just got more confused, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you can't talk about something in the future with friends. Sometimes when I do it about the past, I get more confused because it's in the past and everybody's memories aren't perfect about the past. When we go into our memories, we can just get more confused. I think to sum it up, it's really that we're never going to see more clearly by thinking more, and especially about something that's 6 or 7 years ago, and especially in a low state of mind. I really think it can be as simple as when you feel good, trust it. Let your feelings be your guide. When you're feeling anxious, just because we feel something strongly doesn't mean it's true. When you said you might feel like, I don't know for sure, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you need to think about it more, or it doesn't even mean there's a problem. It just means right now, your thinking's distorted. It's not helpful. Let it be there. You're never going to find the answer in an upset, insecure state of mind. But there will always be really helpful answers out of the blue when your mind is free. And you already answered that. You answered that in your initial question. You said, I know deep down there's nothing to worry about. And then when I asked you a little bit further, you even said more. You're like, yeah, when my mind is clear, when my mind is free, when I settle down, when I feel good, there's what I'm looking for. I know it's not a problem. And it's really that simple, of letting our feelings be our guide and knowing that when our mind is clear, that's when our answer appears.